Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Airline pilots see UFOs. They just don't talk about it. And their culture of silence explains a lot about why one series of reoccurring visits from enormous triangular craft has so far gone unreported. The UFOs, called silent vulcans, are said to have made hundreds of appearances in the skies above Great Britain. But this is the first time the phenomenon is being discussed outside of England by professional pilots and others who have seen them.
Look at that! Bloody hell!
For the past 3 years, this is what hundreds of eyewitnesses have been watching and videotaping in the skies over England. These tapes are misleading because the UFOs are enormous, larger than any aircraft now flying. They are triangular in shape with large glowing lights at each corner. They can soar slowly, hover, or accelerate to a tremendous speed. But one of the most eerie aspects of these UFOs is what they don't do.
For sure, in all cases, people report that these things made no noise whatsoever. Some have been seen only a few hundred feet up.
From the left, this enormous craft came over the houses.
And I couldn't believe my eyes, because there was no sound at all from this object.
It banked over sharp to the left, and then I could see it was a huge triangle.
Investigators have dubbed them silent vulcans for their passing resemblance to the British Delta Wing bomber known as the Avro Vulcan B-2. But that, according to UFO magazine editor Graham Birdsall, is where the similarity ends.
The Vulcan was a pretty much triangular-shaped aircraft, unique for its time. But certainly it was no bigger than, let's say, for instance, 60 feet across, and nothing like the kind of size that we associate with today's flying triangles, as it were.
Because they are so much larger than Vulcan B-2s, some aircraft experts are suggesting that the UFOs may be part of a super-secret American stealth project.
I just cannot believe that something as big as that, flying over the United States fairly low, flying over here in the United Kingdom fairly low, and flying in such numbers, could be described as a conventional super-secret stealth aircraft. I just don't buy the argument.
Neither, apparently, does Britain's Civil Aviation Authority, which recently investigated a near miss between a silent Vulcan and a British Airways 737 on approach to Manchester Airport. Commercial pilot Graham Shepherd, whose own airborne encounter has fueled a 20-year interest in UFOs, has studied the Manchester near miss.
Quite suddenly, what the crew described as a triangular, very brightly lit craft flew past them very, very close on their right-hand side. And the reports mentioned that the co-pilot instinctively ducked because it was so close. Now, they were clearly shaken up by this. They asked radar if they had any traffic, and radar didn't see anything.
The Civil Aviation Authority pursued their investigation of the case for more than a year and released their report in February of 1996. Their conclusion, however, was no conclusion at all. Only that the UFO was unknown. Case closed. When Graham Shepherd attempted to follow up with the British Airways crew, he hit a brick wall.
I've written to the captain and he hasn't replied, and I have heard on the grapevine that he's not going to discuss it any further with anybody else. He's fed up with the whole thing, and that if the same thing ever happened to him again, he wouldn't report it. So that this comes back to the culture of silence, the consensus of the line of least resistance is to say nothing about these things.
It's left to researchers like aeronautical engineer Omar Fowler to pursue an explanation for the silent Vulcans.
The flap in Derby started about 1994. From December 1994 until May 1995, we had 52 incidents of flying triangles over the city, hovering over main streets, buildings, highways, cars, and this caused quite a lot of consternation to the local public.
Although their appearance over England is relatively recent, similarly shaped UFOs have been reported throughout the world, going back more than 20 years.
In the Hudson Valley area of New York, literally hundreds of these things were reported by some pretty sane, level-headed people.
We looked over the top of the trees,
And there was this object there out of nowhere, this great big object. It was about 300 foot wide, the size of a football field hanging over your head.
They first attracted worldwide attention when in 1988 and 89 and 90, there were several thousand sightings, some of them at low level, of triangular-shaped objects over Belgium.
Timothy Good, author of Beyond Top Secret, believes that Belgium was the turning point for the phenomenon because of the credibility of the eyewitnesses.
Not just ordinary civilians, but highly qualified observers such as military pilots.
The Belgian Air Force was very open and disclosed how many missions they'd flown against flying triangles, and they even went to the extent of releasing cockpit radar film showing an F-16 intercepting a triangle and the terrific acceleration of the triangle away from the stationary position. In many cases, they accelerated from 0 to, say, 900 kilometers an hour within a matter of seconds. They dropped from 10,000 feet to 500 feet in a few seconds. They were performing aerobatics that no human pilot could have withstood the G-forces.
I think there could well be something ominous about this. When I think back to 1988, when on 2 occasions United States Navy Tomcat aircraft were seen to disappear in close proximity to one of these gigantic triangular-shaped craft. And I spoke to the witnesses in both instances, and I'm convinced they were telling the truth.
Off the record, pilots, both military and civilian, are concerned. The silent Vulcans seem to want to engage our aircraft, and even the most highly trained pilots have never been trained how to deal with a security threat of an extraterrestrial kind.
As far as a threat is concerned, my feeling is, yes, some of these craft are dangerous. I have no doubts about that whatsoever. And some of the beings associated with them are dangerous. I don't think they have our best interests at heart.
The silent Vulcan phenomenon has changed the thinking of many former skeptics, including one member of Britain's Ministry of Defense. When we return, my interview with Nick Pope, a man who has studied UFOs from the inside and is now speaking out.